Hi there, everybody. This is Jeremy Siskind here. Of course, I'm the author of your very favorite books, Playing Solo Jazz Piano and Jazz Piano Fundamentals. And today I want to talk with you about something rhythmic. And this is going to start with a rhythm that the great drummer Billy Hart called the international dance rhythm because it's shared by so many cultures and styles. But then I want to kind of show you how you can expand out from that to create rhythms that you could use in all kinds of straight eighth styles, whether it's something like bossa nova or whether it's something, even like when you play Sonny Rollins' St. Thomas. What do you do comping wise? I want to show you a way that you can get inspired to create some different sorts of patterns. So I think let's dive in. Now, the international dance rhythm, that's something that Billy Hart says, but he's a great authority, and I think he's got a point that a lot of cultures share this rhythm. And it's this simple rhythm. Dotted quarter, quarter. Dot, dot, dot. Like, this is definitely like a New Orleans thing. I don't really know that much about this, but I associate like Fats Domino or like that really old R&B. But even hearing like modern pop music, like there's so many moments where it's just dot 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 dot. That's that same rhythm. It might be in double time, right? Like you might be hearing it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. But it's the same 3 plus 3 plus 2 pattern. Now, it's really important that you understand what I mean by 3 plus 3 plus 2. So given that rhythm, I'm thinking of each in terms of a number of eighth notes, right? So the dotted quarter note is 3 eighth notes. The next dotted quarter note is 3 eighth notes. And then this quarter note is 2 eighth notes. By the way, just a side note, I would never actually write it like this because when we're notating music, we always want to show the middle of the measure. So I would actually, if I were writing this in a real piece of music, I would notate it like that. A dotted quarter, an eighth tied to a quarter, and then another quarter at the end. Nothing to do with this lesson. It just bugs me. It's a pet peeve. And so you can use this in all sorts of ways. Like I said, let's say we're playing Sonny Rollins, St. Thomas, kind of a standard tune to note. The rhythm in the bottom, it's kind of got that island Caribbean feel. But even if we're playing like a slower bossa nova, and I'm mentioning this because Fred Hirsch does this on his Jobim album. He plays Corcovado and he plays this rhythm really slowly. And it's not going to feel dancey here because we're at such a slow tempo, but hear that rhythm. And of course, when you're actually playing, you don't want to do the same exact thing rhythmically each measure. So we might leave out beat 4. Sometimes it might be. Or we could even try leaving out beat 1. Kind of create 2 measure phrases. And at this point, it's worth noting, and I'm not an expert on Latin music, but I know enough, I think, to share a couple things with you. So this rhythm is related to the idea of the clave. If that's not a familiar word for you, clave is a Spanish word meaning key, and it's this kind of part in a lot of Latin styles, particularly in Cuban music, that's kind of at the center, and everything is built around that. I am not a sophisticated enough Latin player to like really understand it. But basically, a lot of Latin music is in either what they call a 2-3 clave, which generally looks like this, although there's a lot of different versions of the clave. Right, so the second measure here is that dance rhythm. The first one is just on beats 2-3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the tricky thing about the clave is just because the piece uses a 2-3 clave, it doesn't mean that you have to play it, but really good Latin players are aware of it. And then the 3-2 clave just reverses these two measures, so that you start with this, what I'm calling the international dance rhythm here. I'm doing a bad job of notating. There you go. So we'd have this one first. And you'd say, what difference does it make? And if you talk to any really great Cuban player, they say it's immediately different. They can tell whether something's a 2-3 clave or a 3-2 clave because of the way that the phrasing works. Personally, I have a hard time actually hearing it because, again, as I said, I'm not a sophisticated interpreter of salsa or Cuban music. But they do feel different. So this one's 2, 3, 4. Here I am, I'm playing the changes of Corcovado, which is a Brazilian piece using a clave, and that's not really correct. And it really depends who you talk to. Some people say, oh, there's some cross-pollination between Cuban music and Brazilian music, and I think that's true. There's cross-pollination everywhere. So that's not to say that you can never, ever reference the clave in Brazilian music, but it's not really a part of that tradition, okay? But then, as we were talking about leaving the beat 1 out, it brings us to another element that I should know the name of, but I've forgotten, and somebody's gonna be much smarter than me in the comments. And this is another element of Cuban music. So if we take this international dance rhythm, I'm gonna write it one measure after another for a few measures. I'll do one more just for posterity. And then we leave out beat 1. So I'm gonna give a tie here. We're basically going to be creating a very common bass line in Cuban music, and I just can't think of the name now because I suck. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Western brains, and I guess Cuban is Western, but Western European brains, this makes no sense, right? We have built all of our Western systems of music around the fact that the bass plays on the strong beats, and then if we want syncopation, everything works off of that. Here, the bass is not playing on any of the strong beats, right? And so if you're trying to learn this music, then if you're anything like me, your brain shifts and you start to play beat 4 as beat 1. It took me a long time, and I don't claim to be a master again, to be able to feel where this bass line lies. So let's try Autumn Leaves. Funky. Your brain, again, if you're anything like me and you've been schooled in kind of Western music, it's not going to want to do that. Or if you combine it with a montuno. I'm not a master of montunos. I'm hoping to have my friend on to teach us about montunos at some point. Okay, this is all a little bit of a digression, but you can see how this rhythm is being used in all these different ways by different cultures. Okay, so that's 3 plus 3 plus 2, super important to internalize. It just shows up everywhere in so many styles of music. And maybe before we move on, I'm anxious to get to the next thing, but it's just worth kind of noting how if you like provide a different shape, especially in the bass, you can make it feel really different. So that kind of, I think of it as a Fats Domino thing. I'm just going to repeat that I'm unqualified to talk about any of this stuff. That feels like that. But if we just change the shape of that bass line and we go up, down, and then like way down, now it kind of feels more like something that I would think of as a ballroom rhythm, like cha-cha or something. Or how about this one? Right, this is sing, sing, sing. Isn't that fascinating how changing the shape of the bass line really changes the nature of the rhythmic vocabulary? I love it. I love playing around with this kind of thing. Okay, now we are going to move on from that international dance rhythm. So remember, that was 3 plus 3 plus 2. As I've been playing some of my own straight eighth music, I've used that 3 plus 3 plus 2 a ton of times, but I've also wanted, the phrasing can feel very short because, right, the rhythm repeats every measure. So one, alternative, of course, is to do some kind of a 2-3 clave or 3-2 clave, but that also feels a little bit boxy. So what I've been experimenting with doing, and I'm sure this is not my original idea, is having more threes in a row. So making, instead of kind of evening off the rhythm after one measure, to make it to expand past. So let me show you what I mean. That'll be more educational. So dotted quarter, that's 3/8 notes. Eighth tied to a quarter, that's 3/8 notes again. And then instead of evening it out here and starting again, I'm going to keep going. Quarter tied to an eighth, that's so sloppy looking. Let me do that better. Quarter tied to an eighth, that's 3/8 notes. Then we can do another dotted quarter here, that's 3/8 notes. And now I have 2 beats to work with here. I'm going to create a 2-measure pattern. So it'd be weird to do dotted quarter and then just like a quick eighth. Not impossible, but I think it's probably going to be better to do 2 quarters. Okay, so remember that first rhythm, the international dance rhythm was, sorry, 2. This rhythm is 2. Feels much more flowy, much more floaty. Let's see, I could play It Could Happen to You. Following along with the rhythm. Now, it does kind of force you, if you have a chord every measure, you have to either change a little early or a little bit late. And to me, like, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's not a big deal. So, for example, I changed early there, right? Or I could try changing late. that's kind of fun to play around with. You don't necessarily need to use it literally, but kind of having this going in the back of your head, having practiced this, allows you to form these rhythms that have syncopation, but are still locked into this nice 2-measure phrase. And if we can do a 2-measure phrase, certainly we could do this we could do a similar thing with a 4-measure phrase. So now we're going to have just a ton of 3s in a row, okay? So we've done all this already, but instead of evening out here, we're going to keep this going. So let's see, one more 3, and then at 3 measures, it's going to start over again, but we can fill in 1 measure of the international dance rhythm here. So that almost gets to the point where it's like you can't even feel that 4-bar phrase anymore. You could just play all dotted quarters at that point. But sometimes people talk about music being floaty, and playing these dotted quarters and not necessarily attaching yourself to any of the bar lines is one way to make the music feel really floaty. Now, one last thing I want to show you with this is that these are great ways to practice perpetual motion. So I'm going to go all the way back to this very first thing. Okay. And here we can practice some perpetual motion between the hands. So let's just choose a chord. I'm going to choose G major. And I'm going to play the left hand. I'm going to play the international dance rhythm as written in the left hand. And I'm going to fill in the missing eighth notes in the right. So it's going to be... It sounds to me like... It's not really like that, but kind of. And now the opposite. Right, you could do this on your chest too. Or you could do it melodically. You know, play around, play a tune like that. And then let's go to our 2-measure phrase. So. Putting the written rhythm in the right hand and playing all of the missing eighths in the left, right? So it's going to be almost all 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then at the very end, 1, 2, 1, 2. Or if I were going to try to play It Could Happen to You. Lastly, if you feel so inspired, you could try the 4-bar rhythm. So I'll put it in the left hand first. messed up a little bit at the end. My apologies. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas of some rhythmic playing that you can do to make your rhythm a little bit more syncopated, a little bit more steady, and also to stretch some rhythms out to 2 or 4 bar phrases. I hope you enjoyed these experimentations. If you like what I do, the best way to support is, of course, to like and subscribe, and then buy my books, especially from my website, jeremysiskind.com, Jazz Piano Fundamentals, and Playing Solo Jazz Piano. If you're still with me, you must be really enjoying this. So I should mention that I have a class available, and I'll put links and information in the comments. It's going to start in mid-August, so registration is open now. All right, see you later.